Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Beauty Shaman. And today I'm very excited to have my friend Joan Rogliano on the show. And Joan Rogliano is the founder, is a veteran real estate broker and the founder of a group called the Wildflower Group. And the Wildflower Group is a support group, a national support group for women experiencing divorce. She's also recently written a book, which I'm very excited to talk to her about, and I'm going to have to read it to get it right here. It's called Your Keys to Moving On, A Guide to Navigating Divorce and the Marital Home, which is so valuable and important right now. So thank you so much, Joan, for joining me today.
Well, it's my pleasure. I love spending time with you
I
and
know.
your audience.
I love talking to you. You're just a wealth of knowledge and love and kindness and support. And I think what you're doing is so valuable, and I really respect you, and I'm so happy to talk to you right now and give my audience who you are and what you're bringing to the planet, because I feel like you're bringing this is an amazing gift that you've brought. So I'm really excited to talk about this. Okay, so let's get on to it. So you mentioned in an earlier conversation, I want to go there, the graying of divorce and how women are getting divorced later in life. And then there's this shock of there's no money and what do? And so let's go there. Let's talk about what you're seeing kind of out there with your, in your experiences with women in the Wildflower Group and about that.
Yeah, and this is an epidemic.
Yeah.
Really, the divorce rate has doubled for those 50 plus in the last 20 years, and every indication is that it's going to continue. And it's usually the women who are filing, which is really interesting. So your audience can Google graying of divorce because there have been a lot of white papers written about this. And as you were alluding to, the issues with this demographic are different than those of the 20, 30 somethings who are maybe starting a career, raising children, so on and so forth. So it's something that we really need to pay attention to, and Wildflower Group concentrates heavily on addressing these particular needs. Do you want me to tell your audience a little bit about, because I can talk about this till the cows come home, as I said to you, because I was one of those women too. I was divorced a number of years ago and was in that age bracket. And I think the biggest challenge, as I mentioned that you alluded to, is a financial piece, because some of these women have not been working, or they're working part-time. They're not in the throes of creating their career. And we found, and statistics find, that these women really haven't been paying a lot of attention to what the family finances are. And so they were led to believe that, in fact, there was retirement, a great retirement on the horizon. Well, when you file for divorce, you do a financial affidavit, and guess what? There is no retirement.
Right.
And so therefore they're struggling with, they're panicked, Suzanne, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
How do I get back into the workforce at this age? I don't have any training. I don't have a lot of experience. And how am I going to support myself? So this is something I would really urge your audience to do. Just if you haven't been paying attention to the finances, make sure that you are very well aware of what your financial position is. That's a good place to start.
Well, yes, and I think we've all had, I'm divorced as well, and it can be a real shock to think I have all this money and suddenly I don't. And then there's the idea, then you also have your assets like your home.
Right.
Many times if there's no money, then all of a sudden they have to get rid of the home. There's, and I'm
right.
seeing this, like, well, you're basically on the verge of losing absolutely everything, right?
Yes, you are. And that's how my whole mission started of Wildflower Group. It was through my real estate practice. And a lot of the women who were in this particular demographic really, really wanted to keep their home. This was a sense of stability, for them. And a lot of the social aspect of it comes into play, that I don't want to change my lifestyle. And I don't want anyone to know that I can't live in, I can't afford to live in my home anymore. So they were making really not great choices about the home, because the home is the number one, the largest financial asset that most people have. And it's also extremely emotional for them. So it was guiding them, and it continues to be guiding them to make really informed decisions when they're at that place. And most women say, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
Because what do we know about divorce until we're at the doorstep?
Yes.
We don't even know what questions to ask. And I was certainly in that position. But you learn really fast.
Yes. And the Wildflower Group, I mean, you also do interviews with people on there about some of these subjects. So maybe share a little bit about that and kind of what sort of support, because you do obviously real estate, right? That's a huge aspect of the whole
Right.
thing. But there's other things that you offer as well. So maybe talk a little bit about
Well, Wildflower Group evolved because I call all of my women wildflowers. You're a wildflower, I'm a wildflower. The wildflowers came to an event and would say, well, this has been really fun. And, my community has changed, and I really don't know a lot of other women who have gone through this. Can we get together again? Maybe next month, maybe we can do this on a monthly basis. And so that's how Wildflower Group grew. And you would ask the question and say, well, yeah, sounds like a great idea. What is it you would like us to present? And they were interested in financial issues, serious issues, but they also wanted to have some fun. And they were also interested in what you do, self-care. I'm upping my game. I'm not feeling really great. Could we have someone come in and help with makeup? Which, to your audience, I mentioned before we started airing that Suzanne did a presentation for our Wildflower Group, our big September event last year. And she was absolutely one of the favorites that we have ever had in 12 years. So it's just that sort of thing. And we did a fashion show one year with a local designer. And we didn't have size 2 20-year-old models. We had 30, 50, 70-year-old wildflowers who were size 8, 12, 22. And those were our models, because we thought this was just a really fun way to bring some fun and community. And of course, we had wine and hors d'oeuvres and so forth. So we do a variety of different things to create community.
It's interesting that we're talking about the community and women as we get older entering into, it's like stage 3 of life. Really. And we're getting divorced. We're starting, I started my business a few years after I got a divorce, because I was like, okay, I gotta make this work. And all of a sudden we're able to do so much, and we're bringing to the world things that we never thought that we would be able to bring. I mean,
and bingo, you hit the nail on the head. And thus we have the name Wildflower Group.
Yeah.
Because women will come to us, and I say they're little seedlings and they're underground, and then they start to sprout and they get their head above ground, and then they blossom into these amazing women that come back and say, do you know what I'm doing? I never dreamed that I would be doing it, that I would be traveling, that I've started a new business, that I'm, working on a political committee. They just surprise themselves with what they are creating and how they blossom.
And it feels to me like this is a culture, obviously this is a cultural shift, because women are getting divorced, that they're the ones, like you say, initiating. There's the financial aspect. Men are going through a lot culturally now where they're not as powerful, and women are becoming more powerful. There's a real shift going on. And in a way, it's wonderful, right? It's just so wonderful to see women taking taking charge. And I mean, you see this from kind of a bird's eye view, I think, you know, the divorce rates and yeah. So talk, I mean, go ahead. Yeah.
There's so many aspects of this. And we know that women in general take a 30% reduction in their financial position following a divorce.
Wow.
Men have an increase of about 27%. Women in 5 cases out of 6 are awarded primary custody of the children. So this has a huge emotional and financial impact on the women and also on the children, because it's trickled down. You now have a woman that is primary caregiver who has taken a large financial hit in her income, and that increases anyone's stress level, which in turn trickles down to the children. So the other piece we have found in the 12 years that I've been doing this, I have never seen this level and heard of this level of bullying and intimidation that women are experiencing. And I receive phone calls from all across the country. And the stories I am hearing just set my hair on fire, because that is what is happening. And to your point again, this is why we need to put our voices together as women and help one another to understand how to deal with this kind of new culture and treatment that we're receiving.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. And, you know, I think I feel like for me, I can speak personally, I went from almost not a child. I mean, I was divorced when I was 43. So, but I felt that way because I had to like grow up. It was like grow up, get tough, like really start communicating your wants and needs, figure it out, you know, figure out the financial, figure out the legal. It's like, okay, it's time for us to really take the bull by the horns, because it isn't fair. It isn't right. There is a lot of negativity. And I think what happens in the courts sometimes too, I have a friend who works in family services. She said in the courts, a lot of times the judges don't side with the women because the women are crying and they're a mess and they're emotional and they're not organized because they're just so overwhelmed, you know, and by the bullying and by the stress and that sort of thing. And she gets in there and she's like, okay, no, let's, you know, and she helps fight for their cause. And I think that's great. She's really unusual. I think generally they just think, oh, she's a mess, but they don't realize, no, women, we're not emotionally equipped sometimes to deal with that level of bullying and pressure and the financial that has been controlled by the men. So
yes, that's exactly right. And women, I have found, are feeling this intimidation on such a deep level. I mean, you know, I know, we've been there, or I'll speak for myself. I wasn't operating on all 4 cylinders.
Yeah.
And I mean, I needed to understand what to do with my home. This is my profession for 20 years. I had to call my friends from the office I worked in and said, you guys, can you come over and help me understand what to do with my home, and should I sell it? And you're just lost and you're at sea. But what I found through Wildflower Group is we women, no matter where we are, I've had women at events say to me, you know, Joan, I don't know if I'm going to survive this. And then in the next breath, they say, but who can I help?
Yeah.
Put me on a committee to help someone within the organization, because this is what we do.
Yeah.
We nurture and we do the outreach that we need to do to help one another through the process, and to understand that with attorneys in particular, women have said, well, I know he or she is not really advocating for me, but there's nothing I can do. And I'll say, what do you mean there's nothing you can do? The attorney works for you and you can fire your attorney. And they say, I can fire my attorney, or, you know, I don't know what questions to ask. So it's just women helping women to understand, hey, I've been through this, and let me give you some guidelines as to how to get through this successfully.
I think this is one of the greatest gifts that women bring. You know, we bring that connectivity and kindness and generosity that I think the male, you know, our society is obviously very patriarchal and male dominated, and that is shifting, which I'm very happy to see. But I think what they've missed out on, the male dominated society, is this great kindness and generosity that we bring to the table that companies need. And I think more and more they're starting to recognize, wait a minute, women shouldn't become men. Women need to be women, because we do bring that. And I love that, you know, like you said, like I remember when I was going through my divorce, man, I was a mess. I was a wreck. And I look at that, and yet, you know, my number one thing was, okay, take care of the children. Okay, I've got to buy, you know, like I was so, even so, still being feminine. So I love that aspect of women.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be sure, we do not believe in male bashing within Wildflower Group. We don't do that. You have your 15-minute, maybe you get 3 minutes of a pity party, and then, you know, we're moving on. We're about how you are going to rebuild your life and be the best that you can be. And again, as I mentioned, this is how Wildflower has evolved. Women have said, we need these tools. Okay, you need those tools, and we have a video library with a number of professionals, like a nutritionist, a fitness person, an organizer, so on and so forth, so that we can provide the tools that women need to get themselves on the road. Because there are two things that women say in general. The first is, I feel so alone. Because it is a lonely place to be. And I can counter that by saying, well, you're never alone now, because you are one of us and we are here for you. And the second is, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know the questions to ask, or if I speak with them after the fact, they'll say, where were you when I needed you? Because I didn't know what I didn't know. And we know that this divorce touches everybody's life. I have yet to meet someone that, if they have not been through it themselves, that they don't know someone, or their mom, or a colleague, or a friend. I mean, it just permeates every aspect of our society, which accentuates that now we really need to put our voices together because of the treatment that women are receiving, and say, enough, enough.
Yeah, and I think you're one of the leaders in that, I guess I could say, one of the people who's saying this needs to happen. And you're in a position where you can really support women through the group and teach them how to do this. And I love that you said no male bashing. I think that's so true. And I'm totally done with any of that. And I think it's a very powerful stance, just to stand up for yourself in a good way, in an intelligent way. And I love that you bring that level of intelligence with the website. I think your website has got a great resource for women to access.
Thank you. Thank you. We've worked, and we're always looking for suggestions. Again, if there's something that we're not providing that women feel as though they need, that's what we want to hear about, to make us more effective and to help women along in this journey, because it does get better. And I mean, aren't you excited about what you're doing? I mean, it's kind of, I was saying this to someone the other day, having been through this just disastrous experience of divorce, but you know what? Wildflower wouldn't be here if I hadn't gone through that. So it's taking what we've experienced and helping others. I just firmly believe in that, as I know you do too.
I absolutely do. And I look at what I'm doing now and the dreams and goals and visions I have now of what I want to do. And I think, God, would I have done this? Because I think that was so much under kind of the idea of my role in the marriage that really, it wasn't working for me at all. That role wasn't working for him either, you know? And so now I'm able to kind of redefine it. It's a whole different perspective. It's fabulous. Yeah.
And I think this goes back to the graying of divorce, that more women are reaching that stage in life. Usually the kids are gone by then, And a lot of them, from what I've read and heard, are just saying, I think this isn't working for me anymore, and I think it's time to move on. And it is a little bit frightening because you're taking a step into the unknown. But once you do that, and if you are embraced by other women who can support you and help you based on their own experiences, again, you just create things you never believed you would be capable of.
Yes, absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about your book, because you just wrote a book, and how cool is that? You wrote a book.
Well, thank you. It was fun. And again, that was through it. My book is about what to do with a marital home when you're divorcing, because I found through my real estate practice that women usually were deciding whether to keep the house or sell the house, and they were not making informed decisions, and they were making the wrong decision, and they'd keep the house and then they'd be buried financially, or they'd sell the house and 6 months later when the dust cleared, they would say, why did I do that? Well, because frequently the attorneys were telling them, their soon-to-be ex-spouse was telling them, you can't do this without me. You can't get a loan to refinance this house without me. And that really made me angry, because again, I felt that was bullying, and I would counsel with them and say, well, I don't know if you can keep the house or not. I don't know if that's the right thing for you, but we're going to bring in a loan originator. We're going to bring in a financial person to help you to understand what the numbers are, because divorce takes a team.
Yeah.
And so what my book does is it walks people through, don't make any decisions, take a deep breath and understand what your options are, because there are pros and cons about each choice, but just be sure you're making the right choice for you. So it was just a labor of love to do that.
I love that women have that. And I think you're right. I think women, when they're in that situation, I look back at my own, and you're just so underwater. And I like the idea of bringing in a team and having that kind of mentality, and just let me see the numbers, not just listen to what the bully's saying, or even our families. I mean, I think sometimes our families don't know.
Well, yes, and friends, and I think everyone, I always believe friends and family are coming from the right place. They're concerned about you. They want what's best for you. And so you get a lot of white noise with people whispering in your ear saying, oh, well, you really need to do this. No, I think you really need to do that. Well, I believe that you process this, but also keep it a little bit at bay. And again, take a deep breath and say, I need to educate myself before I make these major life decisions, because they are major life decisions. And once you make them and that final agreement is signed, it's very hard to undo it.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to try and undo it, and it's really a challenge to be successful, to make changes. So, and I understand from what I read that the percentage of people who enter into post-divorce litigation because things were not done correctly the first time is huge. It's probably the majority that people do go back or are involved in some kind of divorce decree litigation following the final agreement. So just be sure you're informed in making the right choices. Be sure to remember that your legal advisor, should you have one, is working for you. Get your team around you of people to advocate for you.
Yes, and I think sometimes women just want out so badly.
Oh,
right?
You've been listening to some of my conversations where women are going, where do I sign? I just want this over. I want this over. And you say, it will be over, but you have to do it right. I was one of those women.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have known loads of friends. One of my very best friend was like, I just want to get out of this.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, she was in a very kind of more extreme situation, but But I look at that and think, okay, she was left with $14 after she signed her divorce papers. And I was like, holy crap, she's totally rebuilt her life. She's got her kids in college. I mean, this woman is like my hero. I'm just so proud.
Oh,
I'm just so proud of her. But I think they really couldn't go back because I won't go into the situation, but I think and then I get that, I know even in my own life, it was like, just get me out of this, but it's, you have to just stay with it. And, whatever you need to do to figure it out, and it's emotional support. And that's what Wildflower Group brings. And then also, so it's emotional support. Plus it's also the practicals, which I love, right? That you have your book in particular brings all those practicals, because those are the two things we're going to be just so overwhelmed by.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just providing the tools, because what women are looking for, I believe, is they're looking for hope. And they look at you. I know after you spoke to our group and they said there were some women there who were thinking about divorcing or were in the throes of it, and they felt really encouraged that, well, look at Suzanne, she did it. And she's okay, and your daughter was there with you, and and her daughter's okay, and that's what they need to know. Right. Am I going to be okay? Are my children going to be okay? I can't tell you how many times I hear that, but what about my kids? What about my kids? And I can just say, let me tell you what my kids went through. And they're doing beautifully now, but they need that confirmation, that hope that it's going to be okay.
Yes.
And it will be. There are wildflowers blooming everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And in a way, when I remember going through mine, I remember thinking, this is a reinvention. I'm experiencing a reinvention. And I love the part 3, because we have part 1, part 2. And I love the idea that the part 3s are just slamming it in the world. We're just like, okay, what do we want? Let's make the money. Let's, I love that it's no longer like, okay, you're in your 50s and 60s, life is done.
Yeah.
Children. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I love that. But I'm not done, man. I got
no, and we're encouraged, and we encourage each other. I mean, we've got a group, kind of a subset of Wildflower Group right now, of women that are meeting in their mid 60s on into their 70s, and they're meeting because they're saying, I got to do something, but I'm not sure what that is. And so it's kind of a roundtable discussion that you can bounce ideas off these other Wildflower women that you have come to know and trust. And they're just helping each other to see what this next chapter, what this next adventure is going to be for each of them. And it's different for each of them, and they're cheering each other on. And it's really cool to see. So we'd like to do more of that also.
Right. Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. And, I think that's one of the greatest things I can say that came out of my divorce was my female relationships and encouragements and kind of team idea. Like, okay, how can we help each other? Is stronger than ever.
I know. Yeah. Isn't that the best?
Yes. Women are amazing. I think
women are
the greatest untapped resource in the world. Mama Gina says that, and I don't know if you know Mama Gina. I'm a super fan of Mama Gina. I'll put it in the credits. She's written a few incredible books, and anyway, but I love the idea that women are the greatest untapped resource. And I think what's happening in the part 3 is we are tapping into it, and we're trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Well, look what's going on in the political landscape. With women running for office, and women talk about putting their voices together. Yes. I mean, we've got to be awake.
Yes.
And participating in what's going on out there.
Right. And I love, Joan, that you're a part of that, and you are bringing that with your book and with your website, helping women to wake up and to go through the perils of all of this and the reinvention. I love the idea of looking at it like it's not a devastation, it's a reinvention. And what does that look like? And you're a part of that whole kind of wheelhouse that's turning with us.
Oh, it has been so often women come up to me and say, thank you so much for doing this. And all I can say is, no, 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 thank you. Because what this has created in my life, the women I have met, such as yourself, it's just, I mean, I'm just speechless to think of how enriching this has been, and how women come and step forward and say, how can I help? Because I've been there,
Yeah.
and I want to contribute. So yeah, it's been great.
That's lovely. It's inspiring to talk to you, I think, on a subject that could be a real downer. And it's to me, it's not.
Oh, yeah.
To me, it's, yeah, it's exciting and it's rejuvenating. And I love that. So just to tell the audience, it's called thewildflowergroup.com. And your book, .net.
Yes.
And I'll put that in the credits so people can link right to it there. Wildflowergroup.net.
Yes, thank you.
It's out on Amazon.com. You can also buy it on the website. I saw it on
yes.
the website. So
and
access that.
if you're local, it's in Barnes and Noble and also Tattered Cover.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Joan, for
joining
me.
I always enjoy talking to you. What a great way to start the day.
I know. It's like 8 in the morning if nobody knows. So anyway, thank you so much. I look forward to other interactions and maybe another interview we can do to kind of follow up on this to give women even more information. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for all you do too.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.